Good morning. Oh, we had a great weekend, didn't we? And I'm so thankful for our church, thankful for the Bible. I love this book. I love that we get to enjoy it. Sunday morning we laughed some, and I teased and was teasing about our school. We major in sarcasm, cynicism, whatever words you want to use. But I had a good day yesterday, and we got quite a few people sick, but the building was full, completely filled up, and I'm thankful. I want my life to make a difference in lives, and I want to be a help. And boy, God's working in people's lives, and the great choir yesterday, and the teen choir as always, and just a great thing to be a part of the Lord's house, His work. It's a busy time of year. Last week on Friday, a group of our folks went to, I want to say it's Oak Glen, to Riley's Farms. If you've never been there, I'll put a little plug in. They do a good job of putting on a dinner, and it's a very rustic, very small, but they'll do like a dinner, and then they had Christmas in the colonies, very patriotic. Patrick Henry comes in, gives a speech, and it's definitely a patriotic environment. And then they have they do the Christmas Carol, and both with dinner, and it's a small, it's at an apple farm, and they do a lot of things, and they're I think they're Christian people. If they're not, it's very slanted, patriotic and Christian and all. And then Saturday, a group of folks went to medieval times after soul winning, and Saturday we had a good day, had people saved, and visitors in church Sunday from our big day. We had Thanksgiving week. Remember when we went out to the community and preached and had the gospel preached to thousands of people. And a father of one of our bus riders that got saved on the big day came Sunday, and that was great. And anyway, God's good, and very, very thankful for what He's done. Today, if you're not in the mood for some I Remember When, maybe shut this one off and pick up one for another day. But I was just thinking about the world that we're in, and the order matters. You know, the sun comes up in the east, we know the earth is the movement, but there's order in God's planet, in the sun, and the sunrise and sunset. The time is set. Scientists know that. How long it takes a flower to blossom, and what time a baby's born, this whole world is orderly. And you look at the flowers and the symmetry in a flower, and the planet's movements are very orderly in their symmetry, even in the constellations. And I was just thinking about Slobs, and I grew up in a home. We weren't in church. We weren't a Christian home, but we were a good home. But I always remember my parents being sharp, and unless it's little boys in the backyard, or going out to the beach or something, we would dress sharp. We had a haircut. My dad cut our hair most of the time, just butched it off, but we had haircuts. Our clothes, our shirts were tucked in, and we looked orderly, let's just say. I remember the many years ago, we had a wedding or something here, and one of the families in our church, a good family, really good people, came, and the kids were just dressed like they were going to the playground. And I thought, this is a wedding. And I didn't say anything. It's not my business. This is my business, so I can say what I want here. But I didn't go up to them and say anything. But I thought, this is a wedding. Is there nothing sacred? Is there nothing that demands or requires a step up? And anyway, I've got a picture of I want to say it's my grandpa and a couple of his brothers, but I wasn't born yet. But they were at the family farm in Iowa, and the men were standing there. The cornfield was right there, and they all had their shotguns, and they had their ties on and their white shirts. Might have been after church, so while the ladies were cooking, they're out looking for some pheasant. But those men were sharp outwardly, And there was something to be said for dressing up, inaugurations, graduations, weddings, funerals. In the old days, people go to executions, they would even dress up. To go to an execution, you go to the tomb of the unknown soldier and you see if you've never seen the preparation, the guys that live underneath the tomb, there's a YouTube video you could watch of the preparation. It is lengthy because that man who marches back and forth across the area guarding that tomb that represents the soldiers, unknown soldiers that have died in battle, those lives are sacred. And so their dress and their behavior is inspected by one of the others. And it's just not a casual thing. It's a big deal. I remember when President Clinton was elected, he was at I don't know what he was at, a nightclub or a bar or something, playing a saxophone. And all I could think of, that's not presidential. That you can't change your age, your wrinkles, there's a lot of physical things that are you, especially as you get older, and typically presidents are a little older. But there was no professionalism about the man, and his moral conduct matched his casualness toward the rest of society. And this is just me, but I think when we don't care about appearance and when we don't care about things being sharp, I think it brings a lax or a letdown in other areas too. And in the area of Bill Clinton was moral discretion. Many years ago, I remember when our kids were little, we'd on occasion get an old video, VHS back then. And I remember there was a cliffhanger series we found somewhere of these old movies. They were black and white, and the bad guys and the good guys were all in suits and white shirts and hats and ties, and there'd be a fist fight. And we always thought it's so funny. Punch this guy, punch that guy, and their hats never fell off. They were professional, and they were so sharp. And I remember as a boy going to the airport. We didn't fly. I don't remember that our family ever flew anywhere. But I remember driving into LAX to pick up maybe my grandmother that would come from, my dad's mom would come in from Iowa, or somebody else, and everybody in the airport looked sharp. If you were going to go get on a plane, you dressed sharp. This slob thing, it was not a part of real life. Today, you go to the airport and you think people are going to a slumber party or a beach party, and just casual slobs. And I'm not looking down the people. That doesn't make the people unimportant or people that aren't good people. It's just our culture is going somewhere. And traditional Judeo-Christian values that came from Europe to America, discretion and propriety, were in our churches, our business, our politics, our appearance, in our schools. All those things mattered. I remember the day my one daughter, Hannah, and I were flying somewhere together. And we got on I'm guessing it's a Southwest flight, but I don't know. But we usually fly the cheapest we can get, which is often Southwest. And we got on the plane, and there was a seat between us, empty. And we thought, oh, good, we're going to have a little extra elbow room here. And the plane was fully boarded, and there were basically no other seats. There might have been one or two, but it was full, basically. And then this guy comes walking down the aisle, and he was bigger than normal. And he's in a T-shirt and shorts and long, big old hairy legs sticking out, larger than normal. And I thought, oh, well, here's a friend we're going to have, and I want to get to witness him. So I moved from the aisle to the middle, and so he could have the aisle seat, and he sat down. And he was the nicest guy. He was a cameraman for a big name Christian, a guy who's big enough name that his a lot of his sermons and things are on television. And if I called the name, most of you know. But he was saved, and we had an enjoyable conversation. But his outside said everything against what he really was inside. And you might say, well, you shouldn't judge people by the outside. Well, no, I shouldn't. But you know what? We all do. And the outside really does matter. if you go to the airport and you look at the uniforms of airline employees, go to a football game or a basketball game and see how uniforms matter, and sharp-looking uniforms, and people that are pressed and ironed. And look at our man, especially our military dress uniforms, how important that sharpness is, and how they carry themselves, how important it is. You go back even to the 50s, the Happy Days shows, and I wasn't born. I was born in 57, but you look at those old shows. They ironed their jeans. Everybody wanted to look sharp. The girls in their poodle skirts, hair was curled, and the guys might have had a ducktail in the back, but they had their hair combed and greased back. And I'm not promoting that style or anything. I'm just saying they were sharp, and they took pride in how they looked. Haight-Ashbury, Woodstock, the hippie movement of the 60s, it was all a let down your outside, and who cares about the outside? And as far from what I believe is scriptural. And I remember as a boy, my brother and I, we were at Babysitter's Son. My parents both worked, and when we were little, we went to one babysitter. They had a bunch of National Geographic magazines, and we'd look through those, and we'd laugh and giggle and point at their tattoos, their less than appropriate clothing, and their piercings, and I don't know. There was, I guess it's a lot like going to the mall today. But we made fun of the big rings in their ears and the rings in their neck and the nose and all of this. And it was just primitive. Well, now we've taken those primitive styles, and those people, a lot of them didn't have much better as far as clothing goes. But we've taken, and not only have we adopted their clothing and their outward appearance, but we've adopted the beat of their music and that sensuous jungle beat. And every culture's got music, but you go to the more primitive cultures that have a lot of witchcraft and voodoo and all that, they've got that driving, pounding beat. And of course, there's cultures that don't have very much, and they're happy to have whatever. Too big, too small, too short, whatever. They're just glad to have clothing. And I think, thank God we have so much in America, but the slob clothing, the misfit clothing, the the 6 sizes too big, the droopy down, the clothing that shows our underclothing. Unbelievable that people would wear clothes that shows what they're wearing underneath. That's why they called it underclothing, because it was underneath. It was part of your modesty, and we've lost that sharpness. And if you've never visited anybody in a prison, I'm not sure about jails, but I've been a couple of times to prisons, and they all have a dress code about how short a lady's skirt could be, and how low cut and how tight, and how the men are to be dressed. They have a dress code. They want people going into that prison looking sharp. And but if you had a dress code going into church, people would panic. And I don't think we should have a dress code going into church, but I do think we should not be influenced by this dressed down mentality, especially for church. There's a good guy in our church, just a great guy. And he told me one day, he said, "Preacher, I wear a younger man in his 30s, he said, I wear a tie every day to church." And he said, every day I have to dress up and look sharp, put on a tie and a white shirt or whatever. And he said, "I'm not doing it for church." And I said, "Well, I don't care. That's between you and God. None of my business." But I thought, he'll dress up for gold, but he won't dress up for God. He gives gold his best. He gives God his casual Saturday afternoon clothes. And there's a guy in our church, a good guy, and he'd retired to our area. And he said, one day, he said, "Preacher, you did what I didn't think anybody could do." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You got me to put on a tie." He said, "I lived in a tie." He had a professional career, and he was always in a tie, and he wore a suit to church at his church in the city when he lived in Southern California in the city part. And he said, "When I moved out here, I said, I'm done. I'm done with ties. I'm done with dressing up." And he said, "Here I am in a white shirt and tie." And oh, what a good guy. Just a great guy. But somewhere we have lost the pride of looking sharp, the desire to just be sharp. And people who've studied schools will tell you the like a uniform, school uniforms, kids perform better. They behave better in the playground and they perform better in the classroom. Uniforms are typical in private schools and expensive elite schools because uniforms do affect the way the kids behave. And we made the decision not to have uniforms, but we have a dress standard in our school. We want the young people to look sharp. And I was thinking about the years ago when we'd make fun of a lady who'd go to the store with rollers in her hair. Well, now I'd be impressed if a lady just curled her hair. And again, whatever they want to do, but you go back to the rock and roller world. Elvis Presley, for one, I looked him up. He would spend, and this of course is 50s and 60s, he'd spend $2,500 to $65,000 for one suit of clothing. Clothing matters. Don't try to tell me clothing doesn't matter. And the slob mentality is, I think it's dangerous. And this is opinion, all right? And this is not, most of the time I've got a lot of Bible, but this is dangerous. I think it's a dangerous trend. And the people who loosen their attitude toward drugs and liquor and marital propriety, that is tied often to just a slob in every area of life, and it's not good. And you think about Jesus when they took him to crucify him, they took his clothes and they divided up. You get this, you get this, you get this. But when it came to his outward clothing, that cloak that he wore, everybody wanted it. It was nice enough that they gambled. They drew straws who was going to get that. Jesus was sharp, and he was classy, and just can think about the award ceremonies, Emmys and Grammys, and all those type of award ceremonies that go on. And now I'm not saying that everybody dresses modest, but they dress up, and they are sharp, and their hair and their clothing and their tuxedos and on. And that's why I think a wedding ought to be sharp. I think I'm going to, and we were broke when we got married, but we had suits, and we are entering into something very sacred. And the bridal party is a part of this sacred vow. And if we would just stop and consider seriously what it is we're doing. And if you're going to go hike in the mountains, and I don't even know if hiking counts, because you look at these people who are hikers that do it a lot, they've got the most expensive shirts and pants and boots, and they're very sharp hiking up in the mountains. Their backpack and you know what we like? We like our garage to be sharp and together. I'm not saying all of ours is. Ours certainly isn't. Right now I can't even get my wife. We have a 3-car garage and no cars will fit in it. But all the Christmas stuff and everything. But people, our neighbors, I've got a couple of neighbors with toy haulers and they're different 4-wheel drives and quads and different things. And they're all sparkly clean. They're polished and together. And then the kids go out the door and like street urchins that are homeless and don't have any parents teaching them to do the right thing, to look right. And again, I don't think we ever ought to look down on somebody. And the young people and the adults who come to our church from very poor, difficult circumstances, they are loved. They're loved like anybody else. But I think we ought to take some personal pride. In third world countries, I know especially in the Philippines, it's time for school. You look at those streets, I don't care how rural, kids that slept on a bamboo floor in a bamboo hut, they will be in a uniform that's clean and pressed. I've asked, how do they do it? How do they do it? How do they get clean? And how do they iron their stuff? But these kids, by the thousands, they are so sharp because they believe education's important. They believe school's important. And in the poorest of cultures, their clothing is sharp when they go to school because that is important. And that's how we ought to feel. David, in 1 Samuel 16, it's an interesting statement here. Saul was in trouble, and he needed help. And I won't go into the whole story, but he said, go look for a man. And this is what his servant said about David. This is a young man, David. In 1 Samuel 16:18, then answered one of his servants and said, behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning in playing, a mighty valiant man, a man of war, prudent in matters. And then they said, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. You know, they said in the middle of a battle and all these different things, he's a good-looking kid. He's comely. He's sharp in his appearance. And I want to, and again, you don't have to agree with this. You may think being a total slob is fine, which I care about our country. I care about our churches, and I care about our nation. And when we stop to care, when we stop valuing highly the things, look at the money people spend on their phone, and the money they spend to take care of their phone, and look at the things that people want to make sure everything is just right, and then they cloak their body like slobs. And anyway, just this is a little bit of Goddardism today. I just think it would do us all good to do our best to be sharp as we can with our limited resources. And I don't know what anybody else has, but I think being sharp and being together, tucking a shirt in, and pressing clothes and combing hair. I'm embarrassed sometimes as ladies get older. And again, with a little arthritis in my shoulders and some other problems, I'm starting to have a little more compassion. You know, how can I get the hair in the back of my head even combed? But you know, my mom at 87 years old, she's sharp, and she makes sure she looks sharp. And obviously, age affects all of us, but let's represent Christ well. Let's represent our church well. Let's represent America well. And some of these people down in the Amazon jungle, they can't help what they wear, what they've got. But you and I, we've got it all. Let's just not be slobs. Hey, hope you have a great week. And if I offended you today, well, listen to Sunday morning sermon. I was nice. I preached on Do We Love Jesus, and talked about Babylon to Bethlehem. And what a journey those wise men made, and it proved their love. Hope you have a great day and a great week.